I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago from which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, has set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. And what do I sacrifice? Everything!
We're approaching 200 hours of Star Wars on film. This is the Star Wars Binge, where we select, order, and elevate the best 40 hours of the Star Wars canon. My name is Jeff Cook. I'm a philosopher in Greeley, Colorado, and with me in Denver is the Daniel Mothershed, playwright, actor, and pop culture enthusiast.
This is true. This is the sound of my voice.
Daniel TJ is back.
Hey, hey, hey.
This is also true.
We're going to wrap this sucker up with the TJ Wilson, who is a personality typing expert and likewise expert of all things pop culture except for pop music.
Very true.
If you are just stumbling onto this podcast, you got to check out our first episode. It is chapter 1 of all the things that we're doing. Sometimes we'll react to recent properties like we are today, but normally we are doing a deep dive into the best 40 hours of Star Wars. So check it out. Go to episode 1 and see how things roll. But otherwise, man, there's lots to talk about on the Andor. Andor just wrapped up this morning. I can't remember the last time I watched a movie twice in one day.
Yesterday was for me, but yeah.
The 12th episode of Andor, I didn't get the first time the way I should have. And the second time, I really enjoyed how they ended this. I was ready to get onto this podcast and say, what the hell happened with these last 2 episodes?
Man, I'm really glad you changed your tune because we talked in between those 2 viewings, and after me watching it, I could not understand how you could have had that opinion. So I'm glad you
specifically about
glad
12
you switched,
or about 11 and 12.
Specifically about 12. I missed. I mean, just to put this out there, I missed what Luthen's motive was. Why is he trying to kill Andor, and how is this working? And so I just really tried to focus it, knowing how the 12th episode ends. I went back and was really looking at his dialogue. I put on the subtitles, so that I'm like reading things. Maybe that's it, is I just don't follow as well without subtitles. But now I'm on board. This was great.
I was going to say episode 12. I loved episode 12. I was on the fence about 11. It wasn't bad, but I just thought, oh, okay.
It was clearly set up for this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right until the end.
It wasn't a bad episode, but it was set up for this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was on the fence about it right up until the end, because that's one of the best escape from potential captivity moments I've ever seen on screen.
Well, speaking of escapes, we didn't get TJ's opinion on the last arc. And before we dive into all of the ending of Andor, which I think we're going to spend some good time on, I think it's worth talking about just reactions now that we've seen this whole show. Daniel and I did a podcast about 2 months ago after Kenobi, and we were both down on the future of Star Wars, and I don't think that's where we're at anymore.
That's fair. Yeah.
Mixed bag.
I think the future of Tony Gilroy is looking up.
Right, yeah. Am I excited about season 2 of Andor? You better believe it. Am I excited about Star Wars, the future in general?
We'll see. We'll see.
I'll watch it.
Nicholas Brittle, that guy's got a future in music.
Yeah, he does. Holy cow. God, the music in this last one, the music in all of it has been really well done, but this last one, it was just, it blew me away.
Yep.
Holy cow, it was so good.
TJ, with having seen the last half since we spoke last,
yep.
How you feeling about the future of Star Wars?
I'm still in the same place as I was when we last spoke. This is absolutely stunning and amazing television. This show is so good. It's easily one of the best shows of 2022. We'll see how long that can extend because it's just so good. And also, they still never said the word force one single time. So y'all said something in the last episode about Star Wars is about hope in places where hope doesn't belong. And I get that. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I also think that the prominence of this thing that sort of ties all of it together for me, like I'm still missing that.
Sure.
I think we got to see a few more clues that we'll eventually learn that Luthen is a secret Jedi in hiding, but without that kind of reveal, if they never do Force or anything with the Force or the Jedi in this show, I think it'll be lesser for it.
Right.
So we'll see in season 2. And also, this show is amazing.
There is something about fans coming out of the movies and saying, I really enjoyed this. This was so great. I've had a religious experience. And it's different when, it seems to me, when people who I respect, who are pop culture folks, are saying this is a top 3 show for the year. And that's seems to me to have been the reaction almost across the board. I see it so much hype recently.
Yeah.
I really haven't heard anybody whose opinion I'm interested in dislike this show.
Right.
There's plenty of Twitter nonsense and whatever else, but
so I got a thought on this to preempt our conversation. It's that there's always problems with Star Wars fandom, but it seems to me that there's 3 types of Star Wars fan, and I'm firmly in one of the camps, and it's the camp of I want Star Wars made for adults. So I love Rogue One, I love Empire, I love the darkest parts of Sith. Not a huge Return of the Jedi fan, and there's some places in Mandalorian that I really get up, but this show is made for me. And then there's folks who really want the Star Wars made for the kids. So I think a lot of the Last Jedi fans out there who really are, especially on Twitter, who are so enthusiastic about that movie, love the adolescent tale, love the 12-year-old, 13-year-old line, humor, adolescent issues being conveyed, and I suppose those who love the prequels likewise love Star Wars for kids. And then I suppose there's a third camp that is the combination of those. And this is where I think Lucas is always trying to aim. It's like, I want the kids, I want the adults, I need to put something in for everybody. And that is what New Hope and Return of the Jedi feel like to me. And at times Mandalorian can be there, but I'm floating that as an idea. Do you guys got thoughts on that in terms of how Andor fits into everything?
not really in terms of how Andor fits into that, but I just don't necessarily know that I agree, because I think that, I feel like most of the interviews I've heard with George Lucas, he routinely says Star Wars on the whole is for 12-year-olds.
Right.
12 and 13-year-olds, and I feel like even Empire Strikes Back, Rogue One, I think kids could watch. I loved Empire Strikes Back as a kid. A child.
As a kid, yeah.
But is that because that show was good for you, or because your parents were letting you watch things that you shouldn't have been watching?
Empire Strikes Back?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
There's an argument to be had there.
9, 8, 9, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's less of a commentary on art made for younger people and more of the writing and the execution of the humor and the moments on screen and all of the other things in that the tossing of the lightsaber and all those things. It's not humor aimed at young people. It's humor that doesn't work.
Right.
And I heard Frank Oz once say people don't actually know what they're talking about when they say this is aimed at children, because he said people don't actually know what that means. He goes, when you talk about things that children like, what do they like? Lots of action. I'm an adult. I like action. Bright colors, costumes. Oh, I like those things as an adult too. And
right.
he said people mislabel things as for kids when they maybe mean those things are bad and I'm not able to enjoy them. And that's, so I push back on the kids thing just a little bit.
Yeah, I think that, like, thinking about the the entirety of the media that I've seen, and I haven't seen everything that's Star Wars, but I've seen most of it, and I feel like the stuff that gets through the most is the stuff that's at least not aiming at the kids. It can be like, I think there's a lot of material within the Star Wars universe that can be viewed by kids, but everything that's aiming at kids or even potentially seems like it's aiming at kids, like the lightsaber thrown over the shoulder, the entirety of Jar Jar Binks, well, aiming for kids misses the mark, but I don't think that it has to be totally adult. I think that this show is not for kids. But there is stuff that like New Hope. I would watch that with my daughter around because it's not for kids. But I don't feel like New Hope is being aimed toward children in the way that like Jar Jar Binks is, or even the first couple of, like, before Clone Wars really gets its legs underneath it. There's so much of it that is just so juvenile that it's really hard to watch for me.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm thinking through this as you guys are talking. I suppose when I say adult, what I mean is a mix of the Grimm's fairy tale side of dark mythology conveying. So Luke is in Empire Strikes Back, cuts the head off of Darth Vader. Darth Vader's mask explodes, and it's his face in the mask. And that feels to me fairly adult.
Yeah, sure.
And confusing for younger folks. The political intrigue side of this show, as well as some of the rhythms of Empire, seem overly complicated for 12 to 13-year-olds.
But I think that's good. I think that's good storytelling, because I think anybody who knows who's coming to see their stuff builds in things for the parents that might be taking their child to the thing, the kids. Because, yeah, sure. Did I understand those things when I was viewing Empire Strikes Back as a kid? Of course not. Was it still ultimately a show about space wizards and laser swords and cool crap? Yes.
Yeah.
And then as you get older, and I think that's what so many people say when it's, I want Star Wars that's thus and such, or really dark and made by the Game of Thrones guys, or really politically intriguing and whatever. Well, yeah, because we're adults now.
Perhaps it's the drama, the maximizing drama, and really inserting a lot of perceived emotional pain on screen. It's when it moves away from that. And it feels to me like there's a lot of that going on in this and in Empire, and I really prefer Star Wars and like other superhero and mythological properties, fantasy properties in that realm.
I guess I just prefer them to be good, which is maybe why I don't care for The Last Jedi or any of those things.
Well, hey, guess what? We're going to talk about that next time.
It's in my calendar.
So, friends, the 5-year anniversary of The Last Jedi is next month, and we're going to just do a unfiltered, how did this hold up? What are your thoughts, 5 years hence about these? And we're going to have a special guest on, and it's going to be good. It's going to be good times. So
unfiltered, because we've been holding back on so much of this.
I'm really glad I'm not going to be part of that conversation. We would get into fights. Oh, man.
The other side of this, I think, is there's some high-level spiritual reflection that can take place in Empire and in Rogue One. I suppose as a kid, I didn't understand what Yoda was trying to get at most of the time that he's talking to Luke about spiritual elements. And I think Chirrut Imwe's character in Rogue One does a great job of showcasing something that really requires a lot of maturity to understand why this would be beautiful, worthy, and wise.
Agreed.
But for me, that's why coming to Andor, seeing this and saying this works, this is wonderful, I really hope they build on these sorts of themes moving forward. I'm realizing more and more in myself that it's because they're hitting that type of show. They're hitting the one that, for the most part, is aimed at a more mature audience, it seemed to me. And apparently they can pull it off.
And because they have no interest in servicing the fanboys. So
otherwise you would have seen some lightsabers, perhaps.
Right. Except for the very last scene of the season. the end credits scene? Did y'all see it?
Yeah.
Wait.
Oh,
There's an
that
end
was
credit
good.
scene to Andor?
Oh,
Yeah,
we
there
gotta
is.
talk about it now.
Damn.
It's so brief.
Like
I'm literally
it's
willing
so
to
quick.
wait and say go. It's 20 seconds long. Watch it right now.
Yeah, it's in the
Seriously.
credits. Go watch it right now.
Give me a.
Can you watch it on your computer, or do you have to go all the way
can.
downstairs?
No, give me 2 seconds. This is so dumb.
It's a mid credits. There's some credits, then the bit, and then the
Got some spiders creating a Death Star here.
yeah.
That's a good way to showcase. This is how this sucker got put together. It was because it would take some man hours for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it is really cool to just see what the
Yeah.
guys in the prison were working on.
Oh, is that? I missed that.
Yeah, those
little pieces.
teeny tiny things that those little bitty baby spiders are carrying
Yeah.
are the giant junctions that they were making in the prison.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
I gasped when I saw that.
I had assumed that this was some part of but that's excellent. That's the laser.
Like clearly this is going to be some kind of like this is something for the Empire. And Star Destroyers are gigantic, so it could be anything. Like these could be nothing. Like these could be the bolts that hold together Star Destroyers, and as it turns out,
I thought this ended up being a really perfect way to lightly connect it to Rogue One.
right.
With actually seeing some of the Death Star coming together. I just thought it was perfect. Just a toss in right there at the final moment.
Well, and the moving forward, like the next season is going to be covering a significant amount of time because we're now less than 5 years out from the start of Rogue One, and this like we need to know that the thing that they're building, like the next season is covering those 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to do some significant time jumps, allegedly, and this is a good way of saying, okay, we're actually moving the story forward pretty significantly now.
Right.
Remember the Death Star? It's coming.
Remember the Death Star?
It's excellent. Grounds it in the universe and gives a personal element to the structure itself. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about these last two. Did you have any thoughts on the Prison Break arc?
Everything about it is unbelievable. Listening to you guys talk about it, the one of the big things about Andy Serkis that I really wanted to like, that he's so good at motion capture that like everyone is basically trying to do what Andy Serkis did, and almost no instance of it is it worth it. Lupita Nyong'o in as Maz Kanata, we didn't need to know her specific facial expressions because Maz's face is so different from a normal human face.
Yes, that vocal performance was enough. Yeah.
Yeah, and even the Benedict Cumberbatch's performance as Smaug is unbelievable. Like if I could just watch that, I would be fine with The Hobbit. Like if that's all The Hobbit was the behind the scenes filming of Benedict Cumberbatch doing the motion capture, that would be fine with me. But also, we don't need his face to know what a dragon's face looks like because, it's a dragon, not a human face. And Benedict Cumberbatch doesn't look much like a dragon. But Andy Serkis as Gollum, like this changed the way that we animate characters in live action settings. And so much of Andy Serkis's work is in doing motion capture characters, and so his face is actually so much of his acting is his face, and being able to see Andy Serkis's face actually doing that acting, like there's so many things going on in that storyline, and the only thing that is what you see on his face because he doesn't have any words, and it's amazing.
When you hear people talk about a lot of acting is inner life and inner thoughts and your emotions and what you're feeling, I think he is one of the best examples of what that looks like done exceptionally well. Because obviously it needs to be there to create these beautiful motion capture characters, but that same amount of work is in his real face when he's
Yep.
acting. It's a masterclass to watch that guy perform.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a good word.
Agreed.
He was, just to seasonally, as it's the end of November, did either of you see that Christmas Carol with Guy Pearce that got made a few years ago?
No.
It was very dark even for Dickens, but he was the ghost of Christmas Present, I believe,
Oh.
or Past. I don't remember, and he had a...
Man, now I have to go watch that.
His performance is incredibly interesting. The rest of it is just kind of dark and disturbing and weird.
Sure.
But watching him it's just him in a costume.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
This last arc, two big things I thought were going on. One, they're planting a bunch of stuff for the next season. So stuff with Mon Mothma's daughter. I feel like Brix is important in a way that we're not really shown, but she's being carried through. We get some Saul Guerrera, who ends up being a through line.
Which also, Forrest Whitaker,
Good stuff.
being able to see the progression of Saw becoming insane
Agreed.
is beautiful. Well done, Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah, that's a good dark scene.
Yeah.
He brings something in both the movies and in this. It's the extremist on the good side, quote unquote, who isn't a good person and
Right.
has like gone to a place where it's destructive to themselves. And like, what do you do with that? It seemed to me that his character is outstanding at showing you who Luthen is,
Yes.
because I think, having rewatched the two episodes here at the end, Luthen actually has a character arc, which I didn't notice the first time, and I think it's super essential to these last two episodes. So, and it's showcased there in their first meeting. Luthen goes in, and they're having the conversation about Krieger and how he's going to sacrifice him, right? And the cutthroat element of Luthen is there. We are going to win, and I have to sacrifice some pawns or even a bishop along the way. And that's where his heart is. And that's actually the whole heart of this episode, or this arc, because he's going to likewise have to take out Cassian, yeah?
And something he fully admits to. That speech that he gives is the character, the arc, the whatever you want to say. I mean, it is... he gives that speech and then proves it in that 11th episode of what he's willing to do and how down in the dirt he's willing to get.
Yep.
But I think there's something that is subtle, but I think necessary to know about Luthen and the performance coming off of Stellan Skarsgård. I hope this guy gets a freaking Emmy because it's unbelievable. But there's something woven into this that we're not really seeing, that he keeps hinting at but not saying out loud, that he knows that these are terrible, awful decisions that he hates making. Like there's a callousness that he brings forward that he continually pushes. And like I remember when we're seeing him talk to Vel the very first time, he's explaining what's going to happen, and then he just goes, "Look at me." And like it's this really intense, like, oh my, this guy is basically a dictator.
Right.
But seeing him explain in that speech in episode 10 and in this whole scene with the second scene with Saw Gerrera, he is basically saying there's no good options here, and we have to choose what's best for the rebellion, and the problem is that people are going to die, and somebody has to make that decision, and unfortunately it's me.
Yep.
And even like putting that onto Saw Gerrera and saying this is where we're at. We can either lose everything or lose Krieger. And I hate it. I hate being here.
It's interesting, at one point he kind of pushes that off of himself and allows Saw to make the call, because Saw says something like,
right,
are you going to keep me from telling Krieger? And it's almost like, well, now I don't have to make this decision. Now you have to make this decision.
Well, and I think that's part of what, like, the subtlety of it is that, unfortunately, I already made this decision, And now that you've decided to go back him up, now you have to make this decision. This is the thing about being in the position that I am in, is that somebody has to make this decision. And because you now know, you have to make the decision.
Yeah, to build on that, in that speech, him saying that he has to use the weapons of his enemies to defeat his enemies, it's that element. And there was another line, it was something to the extent of, I've made my mind a sunless space. And entering into that position, that's where he's at.
Right.
That stuff is also all over his character through all the episodes, though, and I think it really is just amazing writing and an amazing performance, because that's his reaction after the heist when he's talking to Mon Mothma, and her response is something to the effect of, lots of people are going to get hurt now, and he basically says, right, that's what we want, that's the point, that's why we did this, to wake everybody up. So it's there from episode 4. But they just do it so well, because it's never... It doesn't feel showy. It doesn't feel heavy-handed. It's just really nice brushstrokes of layering on who this character is until we get to that speech on the bridge, and then it's really there.
Yeah. And so many other times when we see characters that are written sort of like this, we see them in settings where they're actually the bad guy.
Right.
Or they're so far removed from the good guys that they might as well be the bad guy. And I think that the complexity of Luthen's position is magnificent.
And he's the torture that guy is clearly putting himself through when he keeps checking the radio and he's listening for the thing, and he's just there's no peace for that guy. And I think that's what obviously this world is. And it's just told and shown so well here in a way that doesn't feel demonstrative at all, and is just like you said, and I think we said it in the episode we recorded. If he doesn't win something for this, I'm going to be upset, because this is a top 5 television performance this year, I would say.
I never care about those awards shows myself, so I don't. I'll cheer for him, and that's where I'm at. But
I don't care about them either. I just really hope that he wins one.
Right.
The value. The value that the character places on information and himself remaining hidden ends up being very, very interesting to me. Both that's his motive for going to kill Cassian. It's something that's all over the scene with his assistant and Val, where Val's breaking the rules and the assistant is like, this is not how this is done.
Do your job.
It's all over the Saw scene as well, where Saw is saying it's worth losing Krieger, and Luthen says he can't hurt me, and Saw goes, like I can. If I get caught, I know who you are, I know what you look like, etc. And I assume that he's Axis in Dedra's mind, correct? Is it when they refer to Axis?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they're looking for this person that connects everyone together.
Who Andor escaped with.
By the way, real clever when Saw says, you have somebody in my crew, don't you? And he says, it's Tubes. Tell him.
Did he call him Tubes or Two Tubes?
I don't.
Because I heard Two Tubes.
Which is even better.
Is so much more funny. Yeah, it's Two Tubes.
Let's do a replay on that one.
Well, when he's leaving Saw, it's so great that he gets a gun that way and gains leverage. Real good at gaining leverage through being sneaky, and that's just showed in that scene. But as he's leaving, and he's having the conversation with his assistant, and they're talking about pieces. This is where he says about Cassian, if we lose that piece, we will have to close shop. And I was like, oh, there it is. Okay. Now I'm getting it. I totally missed that the first time how this is playing out, because apparently I got really into the Luthen versus a Star Destroyer scene, and
which was
rightfully
was not
so.
paying attention.
Holy crap!
That is the best escape from custody scene I've ever watched.
Absolutely amazing.
Someone online on the YouTubes was pointing out how this is how the opening of Last Jedi should have played. You have the single pilot in his craft with a large Star Destroyer, and there's a conversation going back and forth. And the cleverness, the intelligence that Luthen shows in that moment of getting away versus what happens with Poe Dameron at the beginning of Lost Jedi and the jokes about, being on the phone and being on hold and the rest.
I don't remember this at all. I believe you.
Poe's in an X-wing facing down like this fleet of First Order ships.
Right. And I remember that. I just don't remember any of that dialogue.
All right, so to bring James Bond into this,
Please do.
there's the way that Connery or Roger Moore plays James Bond and the style of humor that's inserted into the world that brings up, kind of a different kind of enjoyment, whereas Daniel Craig's James Bond seldom engages the humor.
Mm-hmm. But also gets his ass kicked a lot. And that's this James Bond.
Right.
Yeah.
Andor feels a whole lot more Daniel Craigish. I'm not sure if they're pulling off the humor anywhere else in Star Wars, but
well, and then I think there's also like, as awesome as that scene is, and man, I love Luthen all the more because holy crap, it was so great, and I want to know where he got his car. I want to cue. But also the importance of this through line through the whole, almost like a subplot, but it's not really. But part of the whole story is the incredible arrogance of the Empire.
Yeah.
And the arrogance and ignorance.
Yeah. My ship is bigger than yours, and they're just not self-aware.
All they have to do is run his plates, and they see his plates are fine, and that's it. They can't pull him over. Except he literally says, we need the practice.
Yep.
Let's bring him in anyway.
Yeah. The overreach of the local cops is all over that scene.
Yeah. And just the pure Cassian says it several times, just the fact that you could just dress like them, walk in like you know what you're doing, and walk out. Yep. And because they assume that nobody's going to do this. That's their downfall with the bank heist. That's their downfall with the prison. That's their downfall with trying to capture Luthen. That's their downfall with trying to capture Andor in the first place on Ferrix. And it's just, the arrogance and the ignorance of the Empire to think that nobody would dare stand up to us is on display in very clear ways.
This scene ended up bringing a lot more body and depth to some of the stuff that happens in New Hope for me. One of the scenes that really popped immediately was Han Solo boasting about how fast his ship is and saying, it can outrun the Empire, not just the local bulk cruisers. I'm talking about the big Corellian ships. Yeah. And this was a scene that kind of, it was a show don't tell kind of moment for me. That was kind of like, this is the confidence that Solo has in his ship, but it's also what somebody like Kenobi would be worried about. It's like, we got to navigate this galaxy without, the tech that the Empire has pulling us in.
Yeah. Well, this is also one of the first times that we really see something a little bit more in depth with a tractor beam.
Yep.
Like we encounter a tractor beam a couple of times in previous media, but this is the first time where they talk about levels.
Yeah.
You see the science behind it as opposed to it just being kind of a magical net that you get caught in.
Right. And the idea that they're going to see this tiny ship that's not a big deal, and they're not going to use the full force of their tractor beam because they don't need to. And all, as it turns out, the ship is a lot more powerful than they thought, and they're now sitting on a broken cruiser.
There's some surprises in that ship.
Yeah.
That's a great moment in that scene too, when he releases and it's tearing up everything, and the one guy basically, look at all the, I can see this. It's so good. Just the writing of that is so delightful.
One other thing is, I like these sorts of space battles way more, where it's just 5 or 6 ships as opposed to 182 ships. It gets really messy and complicated. I think Return of the Jedi is beautiful, the last big space battle. But these, where you kind of you're seeing the agility, you're watching the dogfight, there's real stakes with each of the villains' ship and how the Red Baron, takes 6 people down, as it were. This was really quality for television, especially.
Yeah.
That Disney money.
Disney money. It's also the case that you can see how far, what would you call this? The writing brings so much more life to the space battle. You don't have to do a ton of CGI to make this work. There's a lot of dialogue that is what makes this work.
Most of that is two different groups of people in a different ship set.
Yep.
And it's, I believed every minute of it.
Right. And it's all new, too.
Yeah. Yeah, we've never seen...
We have not seen that cruiser in live Star Wars before. We haven't seen his ship. Where the heck did his ship come from? And it has the DeLorean rear end thing that opens up and fires
That is what that is.
fires mines out the back of it, and then lasers coming out the side. Like, we've never seen this before.
And
it's
the inside co-pilot navigation system. It's just it's that's really cool too, because I'm thinking about A New Hope when they're caught in the tractor beam and they're just flicking switches on and off and there's nothing. But seeing that console of trying to power things up and what levels you have to get to be able to evade a tractor beam, I just thought that was so interesting.
Yeah.
Felt totally in universe too.
Yeah, and it didn't slow anything down. It wasn't too much extra. It just was gorgeous.
Yeah, even the priming of the device that the gauge that shows it is like, it felt like there might be someone underneath there turning a dial, you know? like it felt it did not feel cheap, but it felt like somebody doing the best they can in the 70s.
Right.
So,
and that's what's so impressive
very
about
pleased with this.
just mentioning the Return of the Jedi Star Wars. I think that's why those are in there. It was the 70s and 80s and they were able to do that. So that's incredible. Whereas now we know we can do that. What else you got? And that's what makes something like this so remarkable.
Yep.
To double down on the idea that it felt in universe, one of the things that the sequels don't do well is introducing like fantastic new force powers and abilities to move the plot along.
Flying through space is pretty cool.
We'll leave that for next time.
Is it though?
It's not.
The thing about everything in this scene is it's using all the pieces on the board that have been established in new and creative ways, and that's fantastic storytelling.
Yeah.
Last scene in episode 11, I thought was a fantastic rhyme for Rogue One, and it's Andor saying at some point that she, meaning his mother, would be proud of him. This is also the last line that he says to Jyn Erso on the beach, that your father would be proud of you. There's a moment there, and then it's when he hears of her death, he is again on a beach, and the angle of his face is identical to the one in Rogue One, I think. I'm making this up.
No, it's very reminiscent.
Yeah.
If it's not the same, it feels like it's intended to invoke that.
Love that as a balance, and that worked for me. And I got real emotional at the end of that episode.
That whole final run of moments where you realize that Marva's dead bring a punch. The droid alone in the house, not wanting to leave, that sense of connection and attachment to her and the space, so human.
Yep.
To reinforce a political point we continue to make on this show about droids, but also just so beautifully done. I loved that moment.
Yeah, all of the stuff, and it just made me so sad that we're never going to see Fiona Shaw again
in this show.
Thank God they fixed that.
Still,
holy crap!
Yeah, holy cow!
Holy crap! We'll get through it. And the weight of someone dying. They handled this so that there's so much about a community grieving someone, and we didn't watch them get killed by a blaster, like the level of like really sort of normal human death that, and like all of us experience death, and this was something that was so much more, it was so much closer to home and just every part of it that they did is so, and the way that, like, this is the event that is going to move literally all of the pieces that we've been following for the last 10 episodes into the same place.
That's the thing.
Awesome.
That's the thing that hit me, and I don't want to just continue to crap on the sequels.
Go ahead.
This showcases the failure of the last movie. If you're gonna have the death of Leia, make it matter, and make it be part of the story. And that's exactly it. There are so many points that are brought together and move the story forward, around this death. And it's not just, here's a character that we loved who's dying in a room that we've never seen before. And it doesn't really have any effect on anything except for now the actors just need to get emotional and then they move on to the next scene.
Yeah. Or even the idea that, like, we have to bring characters together, because this is the penultimate episode, and then the final episode is coming. We have to bring everyone together. And we can do that by having them meet on a Star Destroyer. We can do that by having them accidentally run into each other somewhere else. Or we can build our entire season toward a single event that is going to bring everyone together at the same time.
So, gentlemen, confession time. I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but I am an unapologetic fan of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. This would be the Kevin Costner Robin Hood movie. I think it's fantastic.
Sorry, my internet connection is breaking up. I'm about to probably drop this. Oh, what's that?
Are you going into a tunnel?
Yeah, I'm driving my laptop through a tunnel. Underwater.
Alan Rickman
is the only good part of that movie.
Because it's dull, you twit, it'll hurt more. God, that's such a good line.
Morgan Freeman. I'm a big Christian Slater fan. I tried for many, many years to get my hair to be straight like Christian Slater's, which curly-haired Jeff didn't work.
Doesn't do.
Yeah.
There's something about the end of that movie which is fantastic, where there's a handful of the the merry old men? What are they called?
Men in tights.
Robin Hood's band of merry men.
Merry men.
They get captured and they're going to get hung, and it's a trap, and everyone knows it's a trap, and we're bringing everybody into the city square to expose Robin Hood. And that's what I was thinking the entire time through this 12th episode is I love that kind of tension that everyone knows it's a trap, but you cannot avoid this. And I suppose nobody's going to die in this particular one, like in Robin Hood, but it has that same body.
A lot of people died in this one too.
A fair few people died.
I saw some people get shot.
The stakes aren't there. Like, Cassian doesn't have to show up.
Oh, sure.
I always like those. A lot of times they use those sorts of dynamics in Superman films, and these always work for me.
Yeah. Oh no, it's great.
And to that point, like, one thing that I do want to say again about the prison break, it's the same thing as what happened with the heist. It's the same thing as what happened with this final episode, is that they give you something that's very familiar, but they are definitely going to subvert expectations.
Yeah.
The heist, the way the heist happens is like, this is a very typical heist story. Oh wait, everyone died? This is like the way that the heist actually plays out is very different from what you're expecting. The prison break is a typical prison break story, except for the things that are so different and so outside of what you're expecting. And they finally get to the exit, and they have to jump 100 feet into the water and swim for miles before they're free. And then they're stuck on this planet. There's nobody else except for other prison. Like the subverting expectations within these stories, and even in the midst of the funeral to bring back the fugitive that we are trying to capture. And everyone knows it's a trap, and everyone knows that they're going to go anyway. And the subversion of that story is just that they did this so well.
Agreed.
When the Andor theme pops up at the beginning of 12, and it's played by the homemade instruments, I was like,
yeah,
all right, where are we going here? And
yeah.
The use of music throughout for inspiration, for it's in-world music. What do you call that? It's diegetic music. Is that right? Where it's in the film, like the characters are hearing it. It's not just the score playing.
I believe you, but I don't know what the word is.
They did it differently in that first arc with the tapping that was creating the tension. But here, the thing that kept hitting me with, I'll just jump to some of the ways that they're using the music, was how American Revolutionary it felt to me. And it was very visual on this front because you had so many flute players. And for whatever reason, a lot of the propaganda artwork from the American Revolution seems to have a guy with a flute. And I was like, that's what we're going to go kill King George in the city square, aren't we? Or
yeah, but these are more like clarinets and flobos and flutes bolted to other flutes. Just awesome visuals.
The last note of the Andor line isn't played in the intro, and that also just got me. The composer left the theme as you're getting into the show. He left it unresolved, which kind of set that tension, and it was just a tasty choice.
And started it, and like I was baking a pie while I was watching this, so I had to keep checking on it, and. Like I was telling my partner that like I'm so excited, like I'm so glad to have these moments because I was tense from the second it started until the end. Like it was 100% tension.
Same.
And they just let you sit in it because they're doing cuts and they're moving and they're telling the stories of all the different people and everyone's there on Ferrix and like the whole, what's coming to some degree, and it's all tension. Wonderful.
Yeah, I watched this episode sitting on the couch, but I may as well have just been sitting in a chair because I was sitting forward in the couch, leaning into what I was. Yeah, my phone rang at one point and it scared the shit out of me.
They've done this in all of the arcs where they do the drama setup, and then the last episode of the arc, they really bring the tense feelings and movement, and the editing gets a lot quicker, and you just feel it building. Really well executed here for sure. The other thing that hit me with the American Revolution, and I imagine it could work with Ukraine, but I don't know what the underlying thought is the book that is composed, the Revolutionary Manifesto is hinted at the beginning, and he's playing the audio of that. Had a lot of common sense, Thomas Paine common sense in my mind. It's like this is what they're digesting and reminding themselves, here's what it's all about, to fight and why we fight and how the fight actually this is how you win. Real
this
clever.
episode,
remember this.
This episode has two of the best speeches about standing up to and fighting authoritarianism and fascism that I've heard in anything in a really long time, and it's perfect. The writing is perfect, and particularly in Marva's speech, the performance is breathtaking.
On the opposite side, there was a line after they kill all the people at Spellhouse, and the head of the secret police said, well, we had to eliminate all of them and not take any prisoners so that we could question them because we needed to eliminate the taste from the emperor's mouth of past failures. And I was like, that is how things work.
Well, and such an interesting, like this is giving us this beautiful visual, this peek into the world of actual dictatorial systems. The destruction being caused there is not about stopping the rebellion. It's not about punishing the people. It's not about it's not about anything except for appeasing a big man baby.
Yep.
Making themselves feel better.
Yeah. And not even themselves.
Yeah.
It's not about the ISB. It's about calming down the dragon that's at the top of this food chain.
Even if it hurts your cause.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be great to have bodies to question, to have people to question, to have prisoners to help build our Death Star. It would be great to not have to have destroyed all of these resources. But the most important thing is keeping the Emperor happy.
Come on. This is not how Dedra plays the game, though. She is out to find and capture and question Cassian. This is where Luthen's character, real interesting. His conversation with Val ends up being, we need him dead. We're going to snipe him. They're going to flush him out and we'll take him down. Notice how similar that is to what Cassian's job is in Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
He is supposed to take out Jyn Erso's father. Fun parallel there, I thought.
Yeah. Playing on the parent relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
All of this is set up. There's the message that's delivered from the big guy, whose name escapes me off the top right now. But
Brasso?
yeah,
His big friend?
conveying Mom's message personally, and then Mom's gonna have a message communally. And those go hand in hand. I thought that was really well done too. It's like, here's something specific for my child, so that it's establishing there's an underlying relationship here, but she's still a leader, and when she leads, it looks different.
Yeah.
And just really cool for that character too, that because it kind of starts to feel like she's a sick old lady who dies because whatever, whereas you really get the vibe with these two messages from her that everything was on her own terms.
Yeah,
I've planned this message to my son. I have planned this message to my community because these are the two important things. And while I'm getting this out there. I know where my story is ending, but I'm getting this stuff out because this is how I want to be remembered, and that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Brings us to a funeral. They set this up real well in terms of permits and 30 people, maybe 40 since it's all going to be women anyway. And then the band starts warming up.
And then the people of Ferrix are like, we're going to show you what's up.
Nice Les Mis moment a little bit for me with the crowd as they can getting bigger and bigger in this town square moment.
Les Mis is all over this.
Yeah.
The fact that the bands have different colored uniforms, but they're coming down different streets. It was the orange band, but now there's a red band and there's a yellow band. We're all meeting up.
Red leader, blue leader, orange leader, all the rebel stuff.
That's it.
Playing into the arrogance and ignorance of the Empire, because they're going to stifle the we the audience have seen this over and over again. They specifically reference it when we're talking about the heist. Their role is to stifle culturally significant events and just make sure everyone knows that they're the ones in charge. And they allowed the people of this planet to have. They said, yes, it's okay if you do this thing that is so important to you, and you can only have 30 people there in your own damn town. Right. And the people of Ferrix are like, nope. We're going to do what we have to do. Yeah.
And then some, yeah.
And the Empire, the Imperial presence doesn't know how to respond because they are not at all prepared for anyone to do anything other than what they've told them.
And it's so...
We gave you a permit, 30 or 40 people, and we don't now... Oh, God, there's more than 40 people. What do we do?
And that's so beautifully alluded to when you're listening to that manifesto.
Mm-hmm.
These people... I mean, basically it said they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
A few people here or there start standing up to them. They're not going to know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, the power doesn't panic line is...
True.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of...
until it's pushed, and then it really panics.
Well, but the point that he's making in that is like real power doesn't panic.
Right, yeah.
The Emperor doesn't ever panic, but the Empire might.
All these other these suits panic. Yeah.
There's a moment where there's a pause in the funeral dirge, and then the tune shifts. We get a little bit more feisty.
Mm.
When B2 Emo then gets brought out, Video gets kicked on. Middle of the city square. So, I mean, that is the statue. Her image looks like a statue, and everybody's there in the city square. Second time through, I'm like, oh, this is an MLK speech. I've been to the mountaintop, and she's talking about her future death, and she's talking about the revolution that's going to occur afterwards. And I thought that was super. At least that was my take on it. Real clever.
Oh yeah,
Strong female power there. Something that Star Wars routinely wants to do. Sometimes executes well, sometimes doesn't. But I was all in terms of them getting there. And for me, the MLK and the nonviolence, like they're not carrying guns, they're carrying clarinets. Yet these things have real power. Is all over the we're marching, side of some revolutions.
Yeah. And even like we talked about I mentioned that like this whole episode is so tense, and this funeral starts, and it's like they so seamlessly move from just warming up to starting to actually play, and then all of a sudden they're marching, and you're like, wait, this isn't supposed to be happening for a couple of hours, and nobody knows what's going on, and we the audience don't know what's going on, and like the tension, and then that music is just so moving, and everything is so tense, and it's just this like I have so many emotions happening right now. And then like when Marva actually shows up, and you're like, this is a culminating moment of all of the things that have been building toward this spot, is the presence of Marva and the role that she plays as an inspiration to her community, and as someone who really understands not only her power, but the importance of what to do with that power.
yeah.
This is executed so well, and it gives us such a good picture into like the kind of thing that is actually inspiring in something like a rebellion.
Speaking of people inspired, Luthen is there, and he's watching her. And I think there is meant to be, and perhaps we'll see more in the next season, a shift in his heart of feeling like he's been
Entirely.
in the dark and having to do these terrible things. And yet here is something where I don't know what the shift is, but there's something.
I wonder if it's you can stand up to and fight this thing without losing yourself, because she clearly hasn't. She clearly loved her son. She clearly loved her community. She continued to resist this thing. She wants other people to resist this thing, and not only that, wake up to resisting this thing sooner than she did, but she's still clearly an exemplary person who has not stooped to the tactics of the thing of the very people that they're fighting.
Well, and there's a parallel with she says the line, "Fight these bastards," and she says it in a very similar way to the way that Luthen does it when he's talking to not Diego Luna,
Cassian.
Cassian the first time, and there's a good parallel there, and the difference between the speeches that these two people are giving is that one is trying to inspire people to do like you have to fight this disease, and if you are asleep to it, that's the problem, and they're using the fact that you're asleep to it. And Luthen's speech is so much more about don't you want to have an impact with your life, and for like the difference between the two poles of why to come into this fight is that like I would follow someone like Marva. I don't think I would follow someone like Luthen.
Same.
Luthen is saying all of his stuff in the shadows, in back rooms, and he has not had the experience of hearing it proclaimed with a microphone.
Right. And he's trying to undo the Empire. Marva is trying to stand up for what's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the need for all the different types of pieces also quite important. But you do need the person. This is one of the things I think in our own political moment, like the voice of the next generation, who is the person that's under the age of 60 that actually has command of the room and can speak and say, "This is how it needs to go, y'all." Like it's something
And
we need right
accurately understands what the room needs to hear and what the room actually should be doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
now. Not a problem in Ukraine, however.
Right.
Yeah, and notice that Luthen's speech gets Cassian to do the only option, which is join the heist, and Marva's speech gets Cassian to join the Empire or to join the Revolution.
Right.
And in the immediate sense, also free his friend.
Right. Well,
Yeah, he was going to do that regardless, but
and that's one of the things that within Marva's specific message to him, and I need to watch it again because they might have been showing us that this was going to be what he was doing all along. But I think the remarkable sort of turn for Cassian of like he came to his mother's funeral and freed his friend.
Mm-hmm.
Like he specifically tells Brasso like they have a conversation and Brasso is going to do the thing that Cassian should be doing, which is take care of the brick and leading this procession. And everyone knows that if Cassian goes out there and shows his face, that he's going to get arrested or killed or whatever else. And he takes this opportunity, takes this distraction to save someone who doesn't deserve to be in prison. And in effect, he's doing the right thing by sort of ignoring his mother.
Yeah.
Like he left her before because he had to get away and they fought and like he feels guilt about it. And then this message from his mom says, "I love you more than all of the wrongs that you've ever made," which is just like, okay, great, Disney Plus, make me cry. Thanks a lot. This is Star Wars. Why am I crying so hard?
yeah, seriously.
But the change, I feel like there's a change that happens there, that now it is not his priority to say goodbye to his mother. It is his priority to do something more important.
It feels like a permission to be free.
Yeah. Yep.
Or to go and do the things she knows and then he finally knows he needs to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's excellent. 2 women rescued. Bix is rescued by Cassian. Dedra's rescued by what's his name? Squirrel? Something like that.
Cyril.
No, I think it's Squirrel.
It's Squirrel fits.
It's Squirrel now.
Okay, I'm gonna drop 2. I might have already said one of them, but I'm gonna drop 2 different. Like, I have no stakes in these theories about the future. One of them is that Cyril and or Dedra are actually going to turn to the rebellion, because I think their vision is too pure,
Right.
to be aligned with the evil that is the Empire. Like they're all about like order and systems and like we have to do everything right according to this thing. And Dedra particularly is really good at being engaged in the evil parts of it. But I think both of them are too. It's an idealism that I don't think will be able to live in the Empire.
Yeah, that would get
idealism
crushed.
can shift.
Yeah. So I think one or the other, one or both of them is going to become part of the rebellion by the end of the story. And 2, I meant to say this earlier, but I wonder if I have nothing to base this off of. I wonder if B2 Emo is going to become K2SO.
I thought that as well, like the same way that they did with what's her L3 in Millennium Falcon.
Yep. Sort of transfer his consciousness to his quote unquote consciousness, his droidedness.
Because that poor little guy is taking a beat. When they kicked him over, I was so mad.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's time to throw down the kicking of the robot, of the droid.
All this other bullshit we could handle, but then you pushed over this disabled little droid.
Yeah.
That whole scene is just phenomenal. The ensuing battle after her speech ends is remarkable. Watching that group of people wake up, just as Marva is requesting that they do, was amazing to watch. It just
Yeah.
happens in slow little waves, and then to just see the terror go across every single one of those Imperial officers, including the one guy who's so smug and snotty looking, and
that pansy jackass who is handed control of this system,
who has to crawl back
like,
through the guards,
like,
and
crawls underneath. Instead of actually being there to fight, he crawls away and hides in a corner while yelling commands.
And I think
so on point.
Two characters for the Empire, that guy, and then Deidre, to a lot of degree, is useless, bordering on the worthless.
I loved watching her get. She
too.
Like, she goes to join the fight and gets hit in the head by a rock, and then she goes to pick up her gun
and
get
kicked.
like it's comical how bad she is at being in this battle.
30 people pick her up and drag her away, and again, it was another moment I out loud said, "Well, she's dead."
Yeah, I cheered.
And then she gets saved, which I Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong. I think I alluded to this in the last episode we recorded. That's the only real human connection those two human beings have ever had, Deidre and Cyril. That is the only. It's messed up and it's probably not healthy, but it's the only real human connection. And that moment in that closet, essentially, where it's, I guess you saved me, maybe I should say thank you, was a different type of tense and awkward, and I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Because he's there because he is quote unquote in love with her, and she is still not at all interested. She's confused as to why he's there. She barely remembers his name.
Right.
And she doesn't say thank you. She says, I should say thank you, with an ingrateful tone in her voice.
That's just her face.
The whole scene shows her vulnerability, which I thought was real clever, because she's been that very vicious, kind of stoic, yet I suppose it's not stoic because it's so menacing. But here, very quickly shows her vulnerability. Yeah, she's out of her element in a mob riot, and
someone who thinks that they are in total control of the situation
until she's not.
Yeah.
Until she has to actually do something.
Just
to quote Mike Tyson, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Or hit in the head with a rock.
The other thing that the director does, and it's similar to the Luthen space battle, is a lot of times in a scene like this, you would have explosions going all over the place. There's one bomb.
Mm-mm.
And they maximize the use of that one bomb.
5 explosions from it.
You tip over the hand grenade box,
and it
but
fills the space with smoke.
It does so much work.
Yeah.
It is creating chaos. It is showing that the locals have real power. The explosions going through the windows really worked for me in terms of throwing. Those were really well executed, throwing stormtroopers across the wall. And there's the turncoat spy who gets killed in that moment. Yeah. And all of that done with very basic tools, as it were. Yeah, whereas a lot of other action, directors, I think they want to have 82 hand grenades going off doing that work.
And all kinds of lens flare.
Just real quality.
Yeah. Also particularly liked Vel running at a dead sprint into the smoke.
Yeah.
I'm super judgmental about actors running on film.
Now, if you wanted to talk about Tom Hiddleston running in Loki,
I mean,
we could talk about that.
Do you know what I think?
On that level.
Is that actually Tom Hiddleston, or is it the complaint we've made about a few different things? Is it because they're running in the volume and you can't actually get up to an actual run because you've got just a few feet until you smack into a digital wall?
Sure. I think it's both. I think that Tom Hiddleston is not he's not an action actor.
Right.
The thing that makes his character so good is that Tom Hiddleston is an excellent dramatic actor.
Though he can do a hell of a sword fight. I don't know if you've watched The Hollow Crown, but he's sensational
I feel
in
like
that.
sword fighting doesn't count.
Yeah, sure. There's nothing
thing.
athletic about sword fighting.
You don't have to be an action actor to do Shakespeare, but you do know you do have to know how to use a sword.
Something stolen right out of my favorite action film, which is Fury Road, was the line, "You're bleeding." No, it's not mine. Speaking about the blood, there's a great scene in Mad Max where that happens, and that was made me smile.
That stabbing was incredible too.
Yeah.
It's you because it happens so quick and you don't really know, and you think, oh god, and then boom, boom, just badass.
Yeah. Another unreasonable theory, I think that Cinta might be Cassian's sister, but beside that point, the difference between Vel and Cinta is deeply fascinating, and the like Cinta kills that guy almost for no reason.
Yeah. Well,
and she doesn't care either. Like that death is almost inexplicable.
She knows he's a agent.
I was gonna say, I feel like it's
Sure.
pretty clear he was gonna kill her
Yeah,
if
he
she
was
didn't kill
Predator.
him.
But why was she even following him that close? Like why was she even there? If her role is to be there to watch out for Cassian, and like that's her job is to find Cassian and kill him, and why was she following that guy that close? Why that whole sequence is very much like she has another secret mission. It seems
I'll
like.
have to go back and watch. I felt like he was the predator, and she got him in the back.
No, she was
corner.
following him, and he turned around and he's like, "What are you doing here?"
I'll have
No,
to
that's
rewatch.
and there's just a lot of moments of just her on camera, clearly thinking and doing and being present somewhere or in something else. So I agree with TJ on that.
I hadn't thought about Cassian's sister, by the way. I'm glad you brought that back up.
It's the very first thing that happens in the show. We've got to resolve that storyline somehow.
It wraps with Brazos with Bix and B2 Emo taking him to the ship where they're going to escape. I'm sorry, that's wrong. Who's he with? Who's Bix with?
Cassian's carrying Bix.
That's right. Brazos is just with
Yeah.
the droid. Was he with some?
Brasso and B2 Emo and the kid who made the bomb, who is the son of the guy who got tortured and
Taken to the
madness
hotel.
and then hanged in the square.
Oh, is that who that is?
That's who made the
his
bomb. Yeah.
kid
And that's
of
why-
the tortured guy.
In
Okay.
that scene when he's putting the bomb together while they're playing the manifesto, he's looking at that hologram photograph of his dad.
Totally.
Yeah.
I saw that and that didn't register. That's great.
And one of the things I really liked within that, and part of the tension for me, was that like this kid, I have no idea who that bomb's for.
Right.
Right.
I don't know if that bomb is for the Empire. It might be for Cassian.
Why?
Like,
When he's
like
making it?
that's
Right,
Yeah.
because he could be blaming Cassian for everything that's
Oh,
I had
gotcha.
that went through my head too. I thought, okay, maybe this kid is going to be the unexpected wrench in the plans. I'm glad it wasn't.
We
but-
know things are going to go sideways quickly, and we don't know how or why. And as it turns out, it's because Marva's a badass at leading people into a rebellion.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, you put all the explosive elements in the same place at the same time, and then light the fuse, and that's great storytelling.
Yep.
And that
It
feels
worked.
like how real life often works.
Who's the character?
Brazos then
Brasso?
Brasso. That's the name.
It's the big guy.
Oh,
who's
okay, yeah.
The friend.
Because I was
of
like, wait,
Cassian.
Brazos is Steve Martin's character's
Right,
TV
yeah,
alter ego and only
yeah.
murders in the building.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. And of
It's
course,
Brasso.
Jamie Tartt's dad as well with him in he's the guy with the beard.
Oh yeah,
I can't think of his character or that actor's name. I just thought, hey, that's Jamie Tartt's dad.
Speaking of scenes that you cry in,
Hey,
but
Ted Lasso, period, man. It's just across the board.
I still haven't finished it. Still haven't
Right,
finished
just
it.
Ted Lasso.
Have you
though.
not
the
seen
first
this scene
season,
yet?
the second season?
you haven't seen the
No.
Jamie Tart scene.
I've seen the scene where in the locker room.
Okay, never mind.
with his dad.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I thought about that scene randomly the other day at work and just began crying.
Yeah, right.
Had to quickly.
That's fair.
Oh,
That's
sorry.
fair. Yeah. Yep.
Well, Cassian then shows up. I do like that they have like the dogs that are at a Jabba's palace. I think signaling and
Those poor real dogs that have to wear all that shit. I felt so bad for them.
But Cassian shows up with Bix. Of course, has to have a conversation with B2 Emo. This is the one that got me. That crushed me.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta take care of her. You always.
I'm not gonna lie. I have never been on y'all's side on this this argument that you're trying to convince the world of
Droids having souls.
and of droids having souls. And this, like, basically every moment with B2 Emo is
beautiful.
It's basically trying to force me away from my position. So
Brazos
Yeah.
clearly thinks the droid has a soul. Gonna hang out with him an extra
'Cause
night.
he's not a bigot.
right.
Don't do that for your VCR. You always say that, and you always come through.
Yeah, man.
Love it.
Oh,
And then Cassian goes and spoils the mood. Says, "I'm gonna find you. I will." And this is something that you can't say in Star Wars. This is
Nope.
one.
Because it means they're never gonna see him
Can't say
again.
it.
yep.
That whole ship of people is never gonna see him again.
So the witch, on one front, I'm like yelling at the TV screen, and on the other front, I'm like, that's exactly how you should tell this story. And I'm thrilled that
Oh,
they're
100%.
willing to go down that road. And I assume it's the case. We got a lot of characters that we love, just like we loved a lot of characters in Rogue One. And it feels like that kind of story.
Mm-hmm.
It-
But notice that not one of the main characters died in this episode.
Yeah, that's true.
That was actually surprising to me.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm not upset about it like I am in
I
some
was-
things.
Yeah, I was almost positive that Luthen was going to die in this episode.
I would have,
Going into
if I was putting money on somebody, I thought
Uh-huh.
Luthen was going to die in this episode too.
Not one of them.
I think the last scene of the episode is really clever, and it took the rewatch to. I'm like, okay, how are we doing this? Cassian has shown up in Luthen's ship. He can clearly kill Luthen if he wants to. Leaves his gun out, comes out from behind the corner, tells Luthen, "You came here to kill me."
I've made it easy for you.
Luthen is impressed. Luthen, who knows everything, and he doesn't know what's going on here.
Luthen, the only other person on Ferrix who knows all of the characters that we're watching. like every time someone that we're supposed to know shows up, they show Luthen's face. And he's like, "Oh, I know that guy." It's like, what? How does he know everything?
On his Star Wars podcast, he never gets the names wrong.
There's a pause to look anything up.
Just a second. Wikipedia just updated their page.
Guy with red jacket.
What
Yeah.
what game is this? Kill me or take me in? Feels to me like there's two baptism scenes for Cassian. He leaves Val and the money, took his cut, pulls a Han Solo. I got my cash, I'm out of here. Him jumping off of the plank, as it were, out of the prison into the water, that seems to me, I've been freed, and the water image can be a baptism. But I think this is complementary here, that it's kill me or take me in. It's I can't live anymore without being part of this. And that's what the game is, him knowing that Luthen will see that and that he's trustworthy. He's trustworthy at the highest possible level after this moment. I keep sitting with that I don't know that you could build more trust with Luthen than this. This is different than the guy that Luthen was talking to,
With the kid
Yeah.
and the wife and the kid, and trying to get out of the game. Yeah,
Like this is, and Luthen knows that this guy's a superstar, and that's where everything closes.
Because there's a difference between trying to get out of the game and changing the rules of the game and forcing him to play a different one.
Right.
right. I also feel like it's like we talked about some of the comparisons with Les Mis and not just the like the barricade scenes kind of stuff, but also this moment is like I cannot live in the system as now that I know what I know, I cannot live in this system anymore. Javert chooses to kill himself, and Cassian basically makes it Luthen's choice. Is like I can't live my old life, and my mother is gone, and everything has changed now. So either you do what you came here to do, or I'm fully in.
Yeah.
And like there's something about the change that is so it's not just someone who wants to be part of the rebellion, but it's someone who recognizes that he has no life outside of the war that he's about to join, and he's probably going to die in it. And like what you were saying about this is probably the best way to get Luthen to trust him. It's not just about Luthen trusting him. It's also like you have to fully 100% trust in me and see me completely and totally bought in, or I can't do this.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you bring me in, you know that I have nothing else to live for. My whole person is now given over to this cause.
Next level.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the screenwriting, it is shown, not told.
Right.
That's some just tremendous screenwriting to get us all the emotions, set the pieces in place.
Yeah.
Thrilled they're only doing one more season.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about a lot of the language that is being used by, I think it's Merrick in the Revolution Manifesto, and he's talking about like there's an inciting incident, and like this is a thing that's going to change people, and it's also going to light a spark that, like, he doesn't use this language, I'm totally paraphrasing, but it's the spark that lights the fuse that actually moves things forward, and the fact that Cassian, who is just trying to fly, like at the beginning of this show, he's just trying to fly under the radar, and like he's not gonna be part of anyone's system. He's just trying to like get by, and seeing him, like the ways, the things that he goes through, and seeing him change, and particularly in this moment where he can be part of something so spectacular in the battle at Ferrix, or he can do something more important.
Right.
And like the buy-in for him is shown, not told. I love watching the character progression and the decisions that he makes. The fact that he saves Bix and literally just carries her out. He does nothing else to be part of this fight while this whole thing is happening. He's just carrying Bix out. And that is, I think the Andor that we met at the beginning of the show might not have saved his friend. Probably would have done more sort of like hiding and fighting kind of stuff. Like he wouldn't have made these intentional decisions in this way.
Again, I'm reading a lot of Last Jedi themes into this, and they're just executed at such a higher level. Marva calls him the spark, but that's a big part of Last Jedi stuff. And what you want to see with Poe, and we need to light this, you need to spark the resistance to action. But here it's shown, not told, and it's like you get the sense there's actually a movement, whereas at the end of Last Jedi, that's not a movement, and it's not really a spark, and then all of a sudden in Rise of Skywalker, there's everybody and their mother shows up at Dunkirk. But the other thing is at the beginning of Last Jedi, Poe Dameron is sacrificing people for battles that don't matter, and that's not how you win. And that's exactly what Cassian's not doing on those fronts, or even perhaps picking up chess pieces that are vastly more valuable than beating up a platoon of Imperial soldiers. Yeah, Bix I assume Bix is very, very valuable, and they just haven't shown us that yet. But
or this could even be a way of correcting one of my least favorite things about The Last Jedi. Yeah, when Rose stops Finn from flying into the mini Death Star.
Yeah.
is so frustrating. That moment is so frustrating to me. I get what they're trying to do, but it just sucks.
Yeah.
It's just such a weird. I hate that moment so much in that film, and here it is appropriately executed. It might not be the case that she's important at all. It might just be the case that he loves her, and instead of dying for this cause, you live for the things that you save the things that you love. Instead of dying to stop something you hate, you save the things that you love.
He's not victim to what Luthen has experienced, where Luthen is sacrificing everything he loves.
Right.
Yeah, there's humanity
and
in this
like,
character.
Yeah. Bix may be nothing except for someone that is really important to Andor.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
One other thing, just because we haven't brought it up, I was fascinated by the little we got of Mon Mothma in this episode.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
I kind of saved that. I really
about
wanted to say that it feels like they are setting up the next season with all of her stuff, and kind of showing you where things are at.
Totally agree, but
Mhm.
I just thought 11 and 12 do some really interesting stuff with her,
Yeah.
because I think
Agreed.
we see her have to make some dark decisions and some dark choices and kind of comment on losing herself a little bit. But that scene where, at least in my take on it, and I've only watched it once, but where she kind of sets her husband up as her fall guy for
Yes.
the money thing,
That was clever.
that was an amazing scene. And his arrogance of, well, they're not listening, but of course she knows they're listening. So she does this amazing performance. The character's performance. It was just such a defining, amazing moment.
Willing to give her husband up, who she doesn't necessarily care about.
Yeah, because that guy sucks.
But maybe having to give up her daughter, who she does care about.
Yeah. But even with her husband, it's not necessarily giving him up. Like you have to when Blevin is talking about it later, with the driver, they think that they now have something over her because of the embarrassment and of the criminal activity of your husband. But what they really have is her scapegoat.
Right.
Oops. And like she's not even, to me, she's not even sacrificing him or like she might not lose him.
That's true. It may just be embarrassment. Yeah.
It's her reputation that is going to take the hit.
Excellent.
Because your embarrassment of a husband is a gambling addict and stole $400,000 from your family trust and lied to you about it and all of this stuff. And the Empire now thinks that they have that to hold over her.
And she says that in an earlier episode when she's talking with her banker friend, where she basically says, she talks about letting people underestimate her and assuming who and what she is. And it's just a great moment to just prove that point a little bit more.
I also think that there's something beautiful here about giving us a glimpse of her moving from her sort of like her idealistic stance. Like she feels very much to me like she is still where she is because she might be able to convince enough people that what's happening in the Empire is wrong. And this is the first we really get to see of her starting to shift and recognize that like she is not the philosopher trying to change hearts anymore. She is now becoming a spy.
She's pulling out of the Luthen playbook, which she's so resistant to in the first half of this show.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, right. We'll see where she goes.
Yeah.
She might Gandalf. Maybe she's Gandalf.
That's it. I'm out.
Last thoughts on Andor? Neither one of you are positive about the future of Star Wars still, even after seeing. But Tony Gilroy's got
This
a future.
show is amazing. It does not necessarily show us the future path of Star Wars.
I love this show. I really, really do. It was so nice to. It was great to have a Star Wars thing that came out once a week that I was really excited about. and never disappointed by, or I hope that this is the model they continue to follow.
Mm-hmm.
They'll do, what is it, Skeleton Crew, and they'll do Ahsoka, both of which I assume are not going to be as adult or mature in tone.
Or they'll just go totally the other way with the adult themes, and it'll be shocking.
I hope not, but possible.
I suppose on the future of Star Wars, they're learning alongside Marvel, you know, how do you tell different kinds of stories with the property that you have for different kinds of ages, but you got to make sure you don't flood the environment, but you need to produce content because you have subscription services, and all these things end up creating kind of a messy space.
And also you want to stay in the conversation.
Yeah.
You know, you want to stay, you don't want people to stop talking about you.
Right.
The only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about.
Yeah. Disney has a new president, and I mean, there's
A new old
their
president.
streaming service. Yeah. Residual income is an interesting thing on this. You're not throwing down $20 to go to the movies. You're throwing down $12 each month to stay with the platform, and
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna see how entertainment works and how the creation of popular entertainment works, given that the entire economic system for producing content is entirely different now than it was 5 years ago.
And everyone's learning that streaming doesn't make any money.
Well, I think that's the in theory, that is, they're doing what Amazon did in the late 90s, early 2000s, where they're throwing so much money just to dominate the environment, and then they know they win for the next 15 years, is what I think is going on.
But the trick is there's 6 other companies that are all doing the exact same thing.
And
they're all vying for the same person.
And I suppose that becomes, this is the new economy. It's like, what are you willing to pay residual money for? People want to win that space.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what, I mean, like Amazon Prime is this, you're paying monthly, you know, so much, or Google Cloud, or, you know, I mean, all these things where they're taking the small bits of money from 300 million Americans. Let's just keep it stateside for a second, as opposed to how do we sell more widgets? How do we, you know, build something in 2 years that's slightly better than the thing that we're selling right now?
Right.
I think the companies that win the future have this kind of model of subscriptions.
And knowing how to continue to produce content that keeps their subscribers.
And so that's going to be it, because that's the model. We're probably going to get a lot more Star Wars, but you better not burn us out with all the new Star Wars. It's kind of, you're in this very tricky situation, I think, creatively.
Mm-hmm.
And it is also interesting, though, all these streaming platforms are now releasing movies into movie theaters again and begging people to go see movies in movie theaters, which people weren't going to do anymore. You know, nobody was going to go to movie theaters anymore because of streaming, and now Netflix and Amazon Prime are releasing things into theaters and saying, please, please, please go see Knives Out 2 in a movie theater for the 2 weeks that it's out.
Right.
So that's super confusing and very interesting.
Because they don't get any more money from you watching it on the streaming service you're already paying for.
Well, that's what I got on Andor. You guys got anything else?
I don't think so.
Next time we're going to hit The Last Jedi, and then Daniel and I will jump back into the binge until 12 other shows are suddenly released, and we have to respond, apparently.
They got to change a bunch of things about how the system is organized first, with Bob Iger coming back.
Sure, get a hiatus. I'm down with a pause. We can get back into some of the best stuff that's ever been created, which was released 10 years ago and definitely deserves our attention.
There you go.
Well, friends, it would mean the world to us if you took 2 seconds and gave us some stars on the iTunes or on Spotify. As with all podcasts, this one's only going to survive if you share it with passion with friends who love a galaxy far, far away. All the material here is obviously from the phenomenal artists at Lucasfilm, and you can see all of our stuff at StarWarsBinge.com. That's what I got. You got anything else, Mother Shed?
I do not.
TJ, it's always a delight having you. We'll have you sometime here in the next year, I'm sure. We've already scheduled it. At least the episodes that you're.
Is there some other conversation about Palpatine coming up?
You're gonna be doing the Mortis
Yes.
arc with one TJ Wilson once we get to it, which is.
I totally forgot. Which is like this is going to be the thing that helps me get through Andor not having any force is the tremendous amount
Absolute
of force
opposite
conversation
side.
happening in the Mortis arc.
Please, Daniel Mothershed, no matter what bad things you've done, you're still loved. I forgot what the line was.
I love you more than all the wrong you've done.
There we go.
I'm Jeff Cook. I always come through. You want to know why, Daniel?
Oh, is it because this is the way?
This is the way.
Because this is the way. Hey, TJ, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you.
Fiona Shaw is amazing. That's my final word.
You're listening to the Grand Army of the Republic broadcast, the voice of the Outer Rim.